Hello, and a very warm welcome to the workshop on the epistemic urgency of conceptual diversity, reshaping knowledge production in the social sciences. My name is Sumi Madhok, and together with Mary Evans, Kate Stewart, Isabel Madem, Lucia Pedrioli, and Becca White, I am a member of the organizing collective of this workshop hosted by the Department of Gender Studies at the LSE. I am so delighted that 500 people have registered for the workshop and are joining us from different parts of the globe. We started thinking about the workshop a little over 18 months ago, and by the time the idea for the workshop took a concrete form, our lives had changed radically in unrecognizable and unimaginable ways. Today, we assemble at an extraordinary time of unbearable collective grief, sadness, and irreparable loss. It is a time of radical vulnerability, but also of apocalyptic global inequality, of racialized and necropolitical global regimes, both laid bare, but also inordinately exacerbated by the global pandemic and its vaccine apartheid and vaccine nationalisms. It is a time of ongoing settler colonial emergencies, wars, and continuing violence, and also a time of deadly global authoritarianisms. Amidst these all, however, what has been unmistakable has been the urgent and powerful calls challenging the existing coloniality of knowledge production and for reimagining global solidarities to help transform the murderous logics that have made life unlivable for most of the world. We align ourselves with these calls. From the very start, our vision for the workshop was of a horizontal space for collaborative learning, listening, and knowledge making that would disrupt the structural power of coloniality of knowledge production. We refused the practice of designated keynote speakers in favor of centering the voices of all our speakers, and to interrupt the colonial imperative of knowing most of the world only through simplistic and unidirectional translation. The call for papers of the workshop was disseminated in 12 different languages. This disruption could only become possible through the work of our wonderful alumni and current PhD students who took on the task of publishing the CFP in different languages. I cannot reiterate enough, though, that a conference on this scale, especially in these times, could only have been possible with the labor, enthusiasm, and energy of so many feminist scholars across the globe. At our more immediate end, we are enormously grateful to Isabel Madem, who has been our workshop coordinator par excellence. Her brilliance, thoughtfulness, enthusiasm, commitment, and superlative logistical, technical, organizational skill and care for all aspects of the workshop, from coordinating the efforts to put together the CFP in different languages, to centering questions of accessibility, to making sure everyone knew what to do, where and when, has set a whole new bar for effectivity and competence that is going to be a very hard act to follow. The collective wisdom of Kate Stewart, Lucia Pedrioli, and Hazel Johnston, together with their resolute commitment to the workshop, has made sure that nothing ever was considered a problem and that everything worked to plan. The magnificent social media skills and combined all-round energies of both Isabel Madem and Becca White, who is our social engagement officer, whose creativity, resourcefulness, and care for accessibility have been crucial and have indeed enabled the workshop to become a presence in the world. Many thanks also today to Lily Schorer, Kate Gilchrist, and Lizzie Hobbs for their help with running the workshop over the 2 days. Finally, our speakers are the stars of our workshop, as are our wonderful chairs, whose solidarity, support, and encouragement have been absolutely invaluable to us. Accessibility has been a key issue for us in organizing the workshop, and live captions will be provided throughout, except during the speaker presentations. Our speakers have made their notes available so that visually impaired attendees can use a screen reader or Zoom text, and deaf and hard of hearing attendees will have an accurate text to follow. Interpretation to and from Spanish will be available throughout the 2 days, and there will be a Quechua live interpretation during panel 1. This is to enable one of our speakers to participate fully in all parts of the workshop. Please note that in the first panel, all the speaker notes will be available. The presentation in Quechua itself will not be translated in real time. This is so that we can all collectively hear the speaking language, which is greatly endangered at this time. And oh, just one more thing. Look out for the word cloud. That will open up just as we go into the first panel, where you can type in to let us know where you are connecting from. The workshop intervenes to interrupt the intellectual practices of colonial unknowing and the normative premise of needing not to know anything about the conceptual, philosophical, and theoretical worldviews that animate most of the world. It interrupts the colonial extractivist logics that treat most of the world as an empirical site for data gathering. The power of Eurocentric frameworks is such that they convert the knowledges in most of the world into case studies or into the local and is devoid of epistemic authority or having something to say that matters epistemically. While different disciplinary locations have their particular key intellectual projects and conceptual terms to operationalize this colonial unknowing, but what connects them all is that they all operate on the logic that the epistemic center of knowledge production, by which I mean the knowledges that frame, visualize, and describe how to see the world, are produced in the Euro-North Atlantic world. While we are very buoyed and hugely inspired by the discussions around decolonizing the academy that are taken up in several quarters, particularly in the humanities and the social sciences, it is also worth noting, however, that these have not necessarily either opened the doors to knowledge production from most of the world, or indeed produced shifts in perspective towards studying marginalized subjects and non-normative genders and sexualities. And while it is enormously important to produce critiques of the colonial logics that drive knowledge production, it is crucial that these do not reproduce the epistemic and geopolitical power of the Euro-Atlantic world, or indeed reenact the epistemic erasure of most of the world. And finally, it is crucial that this work of critique centers the prevailing global political economies of knowledge production, including its own complicity in upholding and maintaining the inequalities of knowledge production around the globe. But you might ask, why a workshop on conceptual diversity, though, and not one on producing theories from most of the world? Well, quite simply, because concepts are the building blocks of theory, and there simply are not the concepts in place which are needed to visualize and describe different political and social imaginaries of life, living, and world-making across the globe. The absence of a broad repository of concepts drawn from different geographical and non-standard background contexts and conditions, i.e. contexts outside those of which concepts are standardly produced, described, and visualized, presents a serious problem for theoretical and empirical knowledge production, not least because it keeps Eurocentrism alive, maintains racialized epistemic hierarchies, material inequalities and political economies of knowledge production, actively produces colonial unknowing, epistemic violence and conceptual misdescriptions, aggressively insists on the unidirectional travel and simplistic translation and radical commensurability of different worlds and forms of world making, and authorizes and enacts refusal of epistemic relationality and simultaneity across the globe. Through this workshop, we hope to put the conceptual production from most of the world center stage. In identifying and attending to the urgency of conceptual production from different locations, the workshop brings together scholars working on producing materially, intersectionally, geopolitically located and situated thinking arising from historically specific encounters in the world. The papers you will hear at the workshop speak of both the institutional constraints of this work, but also of the intellectual and political importance of making the most of the world matter epistemically. Importantly, these papers help interrupt the coloniality of knowledge production by helping to shift the levers of knowledge production towards most of the world. And in so doing, they enable us to reimagine and re-envision different ways of being in the world. Thank you.